Hello and welcome to CivilNet. My name is Angela Hassassian, and joining me today is Academy Award nominated director, animator, and artist Aaron Blaise, who's worked on some of the most classic Disney films that we can think of, which are Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, and Brother Bear. He's in Armenia for the RIA Festival, the RIA International Animation Festival, to share his experience and passion for animation with both locals and the global community.
Correct.
So thank you for joining us.
Thank you
today.
for having me. It's an honor. I love being here.
You have had the opportunity to travel around the world. You
I have
mentioned off camera that you've been to, this is your 29th country.
Yeah, 29th country. Yeah.
And now your travels have brought you to Armenia, where you've held a 2-day workshop for the participants of the RIA Festival.
Yeah.
What did you hope to share with the Armenian community, the Armenian creative community, during your workshop?
You know, it's the same thing that I hope to share wherever I go. You know, I've been doing this. I've been animating and I've been a professional artist for over 40 years, and I've been an animator and director for 35 years. And so I'd love to share those experiences, especially with young people that are just getting into the industry. Now, the industry is quite a bit different now than it was when I started, but there's a lot of similarities. And so I try to kind of take my experiences and share them with a younger crowd, so that it gives them a little bit of a head start in what to expect as they kind of embark on their careers.
And though you've only been in Armenia for a few days, you've landed on Saturday, and what are your impressions of Armenia?
I love the city. I love the food. I'm an eater. And so we've had some incredible meals, and your culture here is just wonderful. And the weather has been great. It's just, you know, I live in Florida, so it's very hot and humid, and coming here to this nice, cool weather has been great. Yeah.
And would you say that you found anything interesting or unique about, like, any unique elements about the creative community in Armenia that you've been working with these past few days?
You know, it's funny. Well, first of all, I didn't realize there was such a large animation community here. And so that was a really pleasant surprise. But then the other side of it is, I love when I do find new pockets of creativity like this. What's interesting is the similarities that we all carry with each other. You know, whether I'm in, you know, Brazil or Japan or any place in Europe, there's a lot of similarities, and that's what binds us, you know. And I love that. I really
brings
love
people
that.
together.
It brings people together, exactly.
And why are animation festivals like RIA important for fostering not only creativity and talent, but also promoting that cross-cultural kind of collaboration in animation?
Well, that you just nailed it. It's promoting that cross-cultural collaboration. And, you know, not all of us, I've been very, very lucky in my career to have worked with Disney and major studios and things like that. But, you know, when we get out into communities like this, not everyone has that ability and that background. So many of us, and including myself now that I'm not with Disney, you work kind of alone, you know, in your little studio, and you don't get to associate with other artists as often. And so these types of events are such wonderful opportunities for artists to come together, come out of the studio, come and see the light, you know, and interact with one another and be inspired. That's the other thing. And you just, you know, everybody feeds off one another, and you can go away rejuvenated and, you know, ready to create. And
inspired to do something new,
exactly,
maybe. Yeah. And with your experience, how can small nations like Armenia use visual storytelling to showcase their history, their culture to the world, you know? Well,
that's the thing. So with the advent of social media now and the different streaming platforms, there's never been more opportunity or venues to share content, right? And so one of the great things that I've been seeing over the last 20 years is you know, with the internet and the growth of the internet, the growth of streaming platforms, is a lot more culturally diverse stories, you know, and people being able to share their cultures and get them out there in ways that were never available 15 years ago, or 20 years ago. And so now I think we're going to start seeing people being able to share these stories that have been buried, because they didn't have the opportunity. When I got into the industry, places like this didn't have the opportunity to go worldwide. And so now I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And I think that's really, really exciting.
Pedaling back a little bit.
Sure.
You've worked on some of Disney's most iconic films, from everybody's childhood, I can say, like The Lion King and Aladdin.
Yeah.
What would be some of your most cherished memories from Disney?
Every film that I've worked on over the last 35 years has its own little gem of memories, Probably one of my favorite films to work on was Beauty and the Beast. I was a young animator, and I was cast to be one of the animators of the Beast. And so I had this main character. I think I was only 21 or 22 years old. And it was an opportunity for me to really grow at that age as an animator, as an actor, as an animator. And it really launched my career. And so that for me was really kind of where it all started for me. But like I said, every film has a certain memory for me, whether it's having my own character or directing a film, or, Brother Bear was the opportunity to direct. And so that was a whole other experience. Exactly. And it was difficult, and, one of the hardest things I've ever done, but it was so satisfying as well. And so, yeah, it's having that history with Disney, and trust me, I know how lucky I am to have kind of come into the industry at the time that I did. We're very lucky, the handful of us that were able to be at Disney during those, through the 90s and into the 2000s. We've count ourselves very lucky to have been there at that time.
And some of our viewers may or may not know, but your main focus is also on like that. I don't know how to describe it, but like animals and
yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Before I became an animator, I grew up in the swamps of South Florida in the United States, and I've always loved nature. I was always out in the woods, just running barefoot through the woods, and I grew up drawing the nature around where I lived. And one of the other things I had in my room was stacks of National Geographic magazines. And they were my gateway to the rest of the world. I had these dreams of visiting exotic places, and I loved the illustrations in those magazines. And so I went to college with the intention of being an illustrator and working for National Geographic and drawing animals. But when I got there, I discovered that National Geographic didn't have staff illustrators. They freelanced. And so I had to start looking elsewhere and figure out what I wanted to do for a career. And I got into Disney. Disney came along, and I got an internship, and the rest was history. But I brought that love of animal drawing into my animation training. And then, that's one of my main things I do now, is animating animals. Is one of my specialties.
It's one thing to kind of draw, or basically draw an animal in a realistic sense,
right.
But you managed to give these animals a human, relatable quality. Like, how do you make them so relatable?
It's one of the things that Disney does so well, right? And I've been able to kind of learn through that process. But it's animals already, if you have a sense of empathy, you can look at a dog, you can look at a cat, and you can see a soul in there, and you can see expression. They've already got personality. It's just, it's just a little tweaking in the eyes or a little tweaking in the expression to make it a little more humanistic, something that we can relate to. It's not a big leap, really. It's not too hard. And so, they make it easy for me. But, yeah.
And as you mentioned, you've worked in the industry for over 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
What do you think the future holds for traditional animation, and what should artists and animators really be focusing on to stay relevant?
It's interesting because, I grew up in the industry working on paper, the old-fashioned way. And about 15 years ago, I made the transition to work digitally. I'm still drawing by hand, but I'm doing it digitally on the screen. That was a huge leap for me. Now we have the advent of AI and all these different tools and things like that. Who knows what's going to happen with AI? I think AI is going to have its own path. It's for me as a hand-drawn animator, I'll always be doing that. But I think we're going to end up with tools that are going to start streamlining the process.
Okay.
And
so you don't see it as a threat?
I don't see it as a threat because I choose as a filmmaker to continue to do it, you know, by hand.
Right.
But I do see there might be a possibility down the road that I can use it to help streamline my process so that maybe I can get more work done. So rather than doing a short film, I might be able to do a feature film with just a handful of people. And those are the possibilities. Right now, you know, creating a feature film, that gateway is kind of held by the large studios because it's such an undertaking. But if we end up with getting tools that enable us to do it with fewer artists, some people see that as a threat, but I also see it as an opportunity for people to not have to go to the large studios and make their own films. So you can see it as a positive as well.
And I guess my final question for today, what advice would you offer young animators here who are just beginning to explore the industry? You know what?
Study film. Study storytelling. You know, at the bottom line with animation, it's not just animation isn't the art of moving something around. It's the art of bringing something to life. And so observe the world around you, but also look at story, understand structure, understand emotion, be empathetic. You know, all of these are wonderful traits for a director, a storyteller, and an animator, because you want the audience to relate to the stories you tell and to the characters that you create, to the worlds that you create. And the more you can get into those worlds, the more the audience will get into it as well. And they'll empathize with you and they'll get behind you and they'll root for your characters, they'll root for your story. So just be a student of the world and life and draw and enjoy it.
Thank you so much. I really hope that you enjoy the rest of your stay here in Armenia and you find something inspiring to take back with you.
I have the entire time I've been here. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
And thank you for watching CivilNet.